everyone, and welcome to the Shakespearean Shrew. I am your Shakespearean Shrew, Karen Feiner, professor from the University of Oklahoma and lover of all things Bard. This podcast is a decorum be damned entrance into the understandings of Shakespeare. There are many stages, and we are going to explore them all. We are at the Mermaid Tavern today with Collin Andrulonis. So, Collin, you are not only an award-winning director and I guess you would say a professor of drama professors?
Yeah, drama educators, mostly students going into secondary education. Yes.
Nice. So you have had a lot of experience teaching in secondary education.
Yes.
Where was that? That was on the East Coast, right?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
I'm born and raised in Oklahoma. Started in
Okay.
Oklahoma schools. Oh, hello, doggy. Um, started in Oklahoma schools for 4 years in Putnam City, teaching middle school drama, sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. And then when you get in a relationship, sometimes life throws you curveballs. And my wife said, "I'm moving to New York to do the acting thing, and you in or out." So we went to New York, and um, I thought I would really easily find a drama job up there, thinking theater is
It's the
it's
Mecca.
the mecca of theater, yeah, New York. But it was really really difficult because a lot of schools have cut those programs up there, and they just kind of supplement it through after school programming. Um, so I really struggled to find a school, but I finally found a little tiny school in the Bronx that was 2 years old, and the principal liked theater but didn't know anything about it and was just kind of wanted a program at his school and was looking for someone to start that. So that's what I was hired to do, and I was up there for 8 years till we moved back home.
So that's really interesting what you talked about with cutting
Hmm.
programs, because obviously we're dealing a lot with finances and education and paying teachers livable
Yeah.
wages and all of that. So, is there something that you tell your students as they are looking into this as a career, as they are looking to become secondary
Hmm.
um, drama teachers and have that be their main job?
Yes, I mean, the truth be told, it's getting harder and harder to say, like, do this, it's the best job in the world. I mean, if I'm being totally honest, because there are so many challenges and they just keep popping up, especially in Oklahoma, where we're ranked 49th or 50th in education by latest studies. So it is really tricky to navigate. What do I say to people about this job that I love so much and believe so much in? So I try to be honest. I try to say, like, uh, we all know pay is terrible. Sometimes you have to have extra jobs. I do. I work lots of extra side jobs. Um, but it's because I think the outcome for me is worth it of touching young lives. So I try to be upfront about it. And usually, their sophomore year, we start plugging them into schools in terms of they go observe other teachers or they coach for competitive stuff. So they start early on getting a feel for what it really feels like to be in a classroom. And sometimes sophomore year, they say, you know what? I don't think I have the passion that this takes. Um, that trade
Mm.
off isn't worth it. So I just try to be realistic with them about how hard it is and how thankless it is, and how you have to work really, really hard sometimes in other areas just to make ends meet.
So, you talked about the passion for it and the impact that you have on your students' lives. What is the importance of theater, especially at that point in their development, at
Hmm.
that point in their lives? What can theater do?
I mean, when I taught at the middle school level, I mean, it sounds dramatic to say that you see it save lives, change lives, but you really do because extracurriculars in general, those students who don't have a place to belong, it gives them a place to belong. That's what it did for me in school. I tried my hand at other things, but nothing really stuck. I didn't really find my people until I found theater because theater folk are different, as you know, and I mean that with all the love in my heart
Yes.
as one. We just are a different breed. So it provides them that safe place to walk in someone else's shoes and put yourself in different circumstances and empathize and be weird and be fun and be silly and explore emotions. So that's what I've seen it do, is just really, really provide a home to people. I mean, I think sometimes we toss around the word family as a second family, and that can maybe come with different connotations for different people, but it's a community for sure. So I try to use that word like it's a little insular community, and we take care of our own.
So, what do you think? There's a lot of pushback for theater,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the younger ages, in terms of what you can perform, what is off limits, what you cannot perform, what is suitable for these kids to learn and to perform.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do you make those decisions? How did you decide when that was your job which productions were going to be good productions for them? Or if you took a classic production, what did you do to make sure that it would fit with the age demographic that you were?
Mm-hmm. That's a tough question. I started by trying to involve my students in selecting work that meant something to them. But of course, at sixth, seventh, eighth grade, their canon is narrow. I got a lot of High School Musical suggestions. So it's a tricky balance of trying to expose them to new things, but also taking into account what they want to see and do and what they feel connected to. So I don't know. We would in class, for example, like outside of just performances, we I tried to expose them to a wide variety of work, and I think we kind of underestimate kids a lot. They can read more mature material. They can, even if we're reading out loud, they can self-edit. You know, when we get to a word that we don't really say at school, they'll just skip over it. If you front load the expectations as an educator, like you guys know like what we say and don't say in school, so when you get to those things, see it, read it in your head, skip over it. Those types of things. But we read A Raisin in the Sun in class. We read Marvin's Room, that deals with leukemia. um, we read The Boys Next Door, which dealt with mental disabilities. So uh, I don't know. I think we have an obligation to not speak down to children, to let them read things. I mean, kids are really advanced and really smart, and they're exposed to a lot. Nothing that we read about was going to shock them, but it definitely, I don't know, just let them see that their lives and things they've gone through can be represented in this theatrical form. So I guess I don't know if that answers that question, but in terms of the productions, I always tried to find like what is my way in as a director, what new fresh spin can I put on a show. So, for example, we did Hairspray at my school in the Bronx, and there's so much historical context there to dive into. You know, these kids didn't live through the civil rights movement; they take some of that for granted, as do I. So, really, just exploring the history of all that. I think there's always meat on the bone to dive into if you are willing to do the work. So even with something silly like we did Shrek, I mean that's pretty surface level fairy tale. There's a lot to dive into with that. You can dive into the history of the Grimm's literature.
Oh
Yeah, you can
yeah.
dive into what does it mean to be different and ostracized. There's always something below the surface to dive into. So that's kind of what I like to do with kids.
I think for me, what's so interesting, especially working with that age group, is like you said, we tend to not give them enough credit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Honestly, it's the reason I became a professor is because I didn't want to deal with parents.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that is difficult? Is that something is, where, if you've ever experienced pushback, is it usually from parents? Is it more from the school system itself? Where does that pushback usually arise, and what do you think the cause of it is?
I think the cause of it usually is lack of communication. Um, I was really, really fortunate at my school in New York. I had an amazing principal who kind of just let me go. He really trusted me. And it took a year or two to prove myself there. But then once he saw what I was doing and how important the work was and how impactful the work was, he kind of just took a hands off approach. So I never had pushback from my administration. Um, and in working with parents, I tried to just really be upfront, like uh, proactive about the material we were going to read and the things we were going to discuss, because education is a team effort. Like it's me, the teacher, with the parent, with the community, with the student, with all the other teachers and admin. So you have to take it like as a team approach. You have to explain why you feel this work is important. I think that gets lost a lot. Why I chose this text, what you can talk about at home. Here's some like discussion topics that you can have at your dinner table related to A Raisin in the Sun, right? Things like that, like involving them in the process. And with that, I had very, very little pushback. I mean, I feel like I should have more stories after 12 years in middle school, but yeah, in terms of content, I got very, very little pushback.
That's great. I mean, do you think, have you taught the middle school age here in Oklahoma?
Yeah, that was my first 4 years.
And so, oh, that was after New York.
No,
Sorry, before New York.
before New York,
Woo, timeline.
fresh out of college, 22, 23, 24, 25 years old. I taught here in Putnam City.
Okay.
And then my last 8 years in middle school were in New York.
Okay. And so then after New York,
After New York,
you came
we
back,
moved back here.
you went to UCO.
And I went to the college level. Yes.
Okay. Timeline.
Yeah. It's a little confusing.
So was it more difficult to teach the middle school theater here in Oklahoma than it was in New York? Was there a difference?
Yes, there was a difference. I feel like, and again, I don't want to sound negative, but I feel like my first 4 years here, I grew very little as an educator. And I think what would happen is I'd get evaluated by administration, and I'd get my evaluation back, and it would be superior ratings all the way down, no room for growth. And I thought I was excellent. I thought I was so good. I don't want to like throw those administrators under the bus. I just don't know that the standard was there for what excellent teaching looks like. It's like, are your kids alive? Are you doing something that looks like work? Cool, superior.
Did everybody survive?
Yeah, exactly. And so I moved to New York pretty confident in my ability. And then I got in a school in the Bronx with kids who 100% of them looked different than me. And I really struggled my first year. I really struggled my first year up there. And I felt like I was starting from year one. I felt like, what am I doing? I used to be so good at this. I can't even, no one can hear me talking. My principal and assistant principal, they were in my classroom every day. Like they would write me sticky notes while I was teaching and hand it to me for like a strategy to try. I had never gotten feedback and I was a little ticked off by it. I was like, what? Superior ratings, my first evaluation wasn't superior in New York. And so I really had to like take a pause and say, okay, I didn't know all that I thought I knew. There's a lot of room for growth. And with all that great coaching I got from my admin, they partnered me with a mentor teacher up there. We went to great trainings and professional developments. I think I grew more in that first year there than I did my 4 years here. And it was just because someone said, you have room to grow.
Right.
Here's where things you can work on. So after 8 years up there, I felt great. I felt like I really truly understand this art form, because it is an art form. It's a performance. And there are strategies you can use, and there are tricks and data-driven instruction that you can use to really have an impact.
You just ran right into my next question, which is, what are the similarities between being an educator and being a performer?
Mm-hmm.
For you, what are the similarities there? Are there, distinct differences? What are your thoughts on that?
I think one is just like very basic, which is like presence, having presence in the room, commanding a space. I can't tell you, I observe student teachers now, and when I go into these schools, I see so many teachers like kicked back at their desk or sitting down while they're lecturing. Yeah. I can't even imagine.
I can't either, to be honest.
And it feels very lax. And I'm not saying there's never a time and space for that, but when you're there to do a job, like get up and like put your shoulders up and command the space, because that really sends a message of what I have to say is important and what you have to say is going to be important. So let's be in this environment together. So I think, I mean, you walk on stage, you want to command the space, right? So that, I mean, basic skills, projection. Can I hear you? Uh, Again, can't tell you how many teachers I hear mumble and just kind of throw away their thoughts. Um, Economy of language is kind of a buzz term in education right now, which is like just getting your point across in as few words as possible. Um, so I don't know exactly if that applies to performing, but um, maybe in like nonverbals, you know.
Yes.
So there are so many similarities, and then just like the days you don't want to be there, the days you've got a million other things on your mind, you have to act like I want to be there, because when we show that we want to be there, when we dress professionally, when we smile, when we say it's so good to see you, we got so much work to do, it sends a message that I care about my job and I care about you as my student.
Yes, I always think that that is one of the things that students don't understand when they're like, "Oh, I'm just stressed out. I can't come to class today."
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, it's your that's your job. Your job is to come to class, because then your job is going to be to do that in your job.
Exactly.
And so yeah, I do think that that is a very interesting similarity in terms of acting. You have to show up. The show
Yeah.
must go on. You've
Exactly.
got to go and put it out there and be your best and not kind of fall apart on the stage.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I absolutely agree. Sometimes I feel like a dancing monkey. I'm not gonna lie, where I'm just like, okay, everyone look here. Like, what can I do to get your attention
Yeah.
and get you to pay attention to me? Um, but I think it's important because this is what you're teaching these other soon to be teachers. And I think that it is important that they understand those aspects of performance and showing their students that they are present.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a hard part.
Yes.
Sometimes as a teacher, it's just not that day. You just don't have
We,
anything left to
listen, we
give.
all have off days, but no, that's a really good point about just being present and listening. Such an important performance skill, but a teaching skill as well. Because sometimes, as a teacher, your mind is 4 steps ahead of where you are right now, because you're trying to figure out how to get to this end goal. But then a student starts sharing something or asking questions that's taken you kind of this way, and if you're in the moment, you take that like educational opportunity to have that conversation and just improv skills, see
Right.
see where that leads. You can always get back to the road that you want to get on, but being present is a super important skill there.
Okay, so we've talked about the teaching aspects of your career. Let's talk directing. Not that they're very different.
Yeah.
So you talked already about how you gave your students a lot of say in the productions that you were going to do. Um, is that the case? I mean, in college, can you do that? Do you have the flexibility to get their feedback or their input, or is that more you making decisions based on the students you know you have access to, or the abilities you know
Hmm.
you can bring in?
Yeah, I both, I would say. You have to consider your demographic, your skill level. I always try to like pick something a little more challenging than what I feel like maybe where they are, just to give them that push, to give me that push. I think when theater is safe, it's less exciting. So almost scaring yourself a little bit to think, can we get there? So I've been at UCO going on my 4th year. My first year, they gave me a black box show to direct. They just said, you're in the black box, really no resources, kind of like bare bones, everything. So pick a script. So I picked this script by Terrence McNally called Corpus Christi, which to me, I don't know if you know it, which to me felt just like a great script. I didn't think much about, because I had been in New York for so long, and now coming back to Oklahoma, I forgot I was in the Bible Belt. I kind of forgot. So I picked this script, which is it's the gospel of Jesus, and it asks one important dramatic question: is what if Jesus were gay, and what would that change what he taught? And I thought it was a beautiful script. And there was some pushback from some one or two people. But being new to the university, I didn't want to rock the boat. So I said, okay, that's fine. I'll pick a new script. And then that announcement got more backlash. Why are you pulling this from us? What, like, we want to do this. Why? So it was just this whole mess. So anyway, that was a lesson for me to stop, listen, take a breath before you make big decisions.
Right.
So then we just called a majors meeting. We had the conversation, and it ended up being, only one or two people were kind of objecting it. Everyone else really was excited about it. So we went ahead with it, and I think had beautiful results and great responses. And um, yeah, so anyway, that was just a script I picked. Just kind of honestly, I read it, really loved it, thought it'd be
Yeah.
a great for that space. The next year, I was slated to direct on the main stage, and so probably a bit selfishly, I wanted to pick a script that's been in my bucket list brain for a decade, and it was August Osage County, which I love, and it's an Oklahoma playwright, and it
Yeah.
deals with very heavy topics. So we did that, and I think it was beautiful, and I'm really proud of it. And then,
You won was that the one you won quite a few
yeah, we
awards
picked
for?
up, I think, 9
Yeah.
Kennedy Center ACTF awards for that one. So anyway, that was, my passion project. So this year, when I was slated to direct on the main stage again, I thought I've kind of gotten to do two things I really wanted to do. Now let me take some student feedback. So
Mhm.
they sent out, the department sent out a survey for suggestions,
Okay.
and Shakespearean comedies were on there. And I thought, that's scary to me. I like to be scared, as I said. So I'll take one for the team since I got to do my passion project last year. And I'll really push myself into the world of Shakespeare. So here I am dipping my toes in for the first time.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So the comedy that you all decided on is
We picked Midsummer.
Midsummer,
I
right?
picked Midsummer um, because it was the only one I was ever in. I was in it in high school. So I was very familiar with it. I always enjoyed watching Shakespeare. Sometimes enjoyed reading it.
it's that's fair.
It's an
That's
acquired
fair.
taste,
It
I
is.
think. Sometimes
Reading
enjoy.
it.
I read what I needed to get through college and write my papers, but it was never. People live and breathe it. I just never was that person. But I thought if I'm gonna do something challenging language wise, let me pick something I'm at least familiar with.
Mhm.
So I picked Midsummer, and then began the process of what's my way in.
Yes.
What's the Collin Andrulonis slant on this? So
I mean, and so what is it? What is your way in? What is your slant?
yes.
I can't now I'm excited to see it. I want to
Well, I'm excited about it. We don't open until February, so I'm not sure when this podcast will drop, but we're in the very beginning stages of design conversation. But I went back to the text, reread it 1,000 times as I do with any play, my approach with any show I direct, and just start, writing down initial reactions, thoughts, ideas, images that pop into my mind. And I just, there's the three groups of characters. There's the lovers and the fairy world, and then the rude mechanicals, the actors.
my favorite.
Yes, the best the group of characters. And I started thinking like, okay, what could I do with these groups? Where do they fit? I kind of knew I wanted to do something contemporary that's just more me. Um, and I just started thinking like, what are these groups in our world today? And then so put a pin in that for a second. And my wife is a reality television fanatic, and I have to say I get sucked into it too because it's on a lot. So
Excuses.
yeah.
Aaron, he just threw you under the bus.
I wanted to say the caveat that I do get sucked in because they do their job well. They craft these stories, and it just kind of dawned on me these are real people in highly produced and manipulated scenarios to create drama, right? And that's kind of when it hit me that that's kind of what Midsummer is. It's people who are manipulated to behave in a certain way for the entertainment of others. So it all started to fall into place with the lovers are the on-screen talent, and the fairyland is the production world.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
Okay.
like twisting the story and showing us certain camera angles when something else is happening over here, right? Or passing a note to an actor, say like, go up to her and say this to her,
Do this and see what happens.
and see what happens. So to me, that made a lot of sense. And then I was like, well, what do I do with these mechanicals? Who are they in this world? So their journey is a little uh, maybe a bit fitting a what's the saying, a square peg into a round hole. Like, how do they fit into this? So I tied them in our concept to Hippolyta. They're like kind of Hippolyta's glam squad. I don't know if you've watched these shows, but they always have glam squads that do their hair and makeup. And Hippolyta in our version is kind of a delusional cabaret performer. And they kind of hype her. It's crazy. What I said is we're taking the classiest thing, Shakespeare, and mixing it with the trashiest thing, and I think that's a great collaboration.
Oh man,
I love it.
So we're exploring lots of multimedia stuff. We're gonna have working live cameras that project onto screens what the audience would be seeing at home and what we're really seeing on the stage. So we're really having a lot of fun in these meetings.
that's exciting. I can see it, and
Yeah.
I'm very excited. So that'll be very cool. So have you already started auditions, all of that fun
Yeah,
stuff?
we had auditions 2 weeks ago, so the show is cast, but we don't jump into rehearsals till November 11th. So we're waiting on other shows to close and stuff. But we are in production meetings now and initial conversations about, because it sounds great on paper, but then it brings a lot of challenges.
Well, you said you'd like to be a little scared.
Yes, I
So,
am. I'm very scared. Yeah, so you'll have to come check it out in February and see if we achieve the
Oh,
goal.
Michelle and I will definitely
Yeah,
be there.
great.
So, in terms of casting,
Hmm.
did you already, because it's a little different when you're in a university setting. It's not like open casting where anyone can come in, you never know what you're going to get. Did you have some ideas of actors who could potentially play certain roles coming in, or did you kind of come in tabula rasa where you just wanted to see what would happen?
Yeah, I really do try to go into auditions as a blank slate. I really do. I mean, if we're being honest, like you can't help but be influenced by people you've seen in the past. But I really do try to come in with a fresh start, because we have freshmen and transfer students who I've
Right.
never seen. We have upperclassmen who have worked really hard, taken lots of classes and grown a lot since a year ago when I saw them audition. We have people who do classical really well, who didn't do contemporary as well, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So I do try to keep a blank slate. You try to take out like, oh, this student missed 2 weeks of class last semester. You try to take that out of your
Right.
mind. You try to just do what's best for the story. And I think when you go in with that mindset, you rarely go wrong.
Were there any surprises? Anybody come out and
Yeah,
just
tons of surprises. I sent out a character breakdown before auditions because this is weird. This is a weird concept. So students could do a little research. So I said, in Shakespeare's world, this is who they are. In our world, this is who they are. And I gave them like reality celebrities to look at. So I sent that out. So yeah, and like Puck is this over eager, production assistant in our version. So Puck can always go a million ways, even in the traditional staging. So gender can go any way, look can go any way, energy can go any way. So yeah, my Puck was really surprising to me. It wasn't at all the way I thought it would go, but this person came in with an idea and a strong choice, and I said that's it. I didn't know that was it, but that's it. Now I see it.
yes. So when we're talking about Puck, who is obviously one of the most well-known
Yeah.
figures in A Midsummer Night's Dream, um, what are the important characters for you, you think, that really pull A Midsummer Night's Dream together? Are there specific characters, or is it a connection of the characters within each other, like the relationship that they can create between
Yeah,
characters?
I think more the latter, the relationship and the way the three groups kind of dovetail. Their stories kind of, weave in and out of each other. I think to me that's the exciting part and to me the iconic part of that story.
I love Bottom. I love fools.
Yeah, me too.
I'm a fool for fools. And so Bottom, I mean, he's just, Shakespeare was like, oh, the jester with his ass ears. I'm going to name my clown after Nass. Like, this is going to work great. And it did. He is metaphorically, literally, in all other ways, an ass. But he's also this character that provides us so much insight.
Yeah.
Which I always, again, for me, there are two categories. There's the clown and the fool.
Mm-hmm.
And Bottom, like a few others, rides the line.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is both just one of those people who stumbles into the right thing or the smart thing, which is a clown move. But he provides us with a new way to see things, which is usually a fool move.
Ah, see, I'm learning something.
So he's like this great character of the in-between.
Yeah. Wait till you see what we do with his ass transformation, by the way. Because that was another hurdle. Like, what is this in our story? And
how do we turn this into reality?
Yeah, exactly. So, spoiler alert. I'll give your audience a spoiler.
Oh, exciting.
Turn it off now if you don't want to hear it. We're going to do this crazy botched plastic surgery. Yeah. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, man.
The makeup people love me right now. You see it.
I mean, we've seen... I feel like that's not as far-fetched as I would like it to be. I'm like, oh, no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So with that kind of a character, that's kind of where I'm always intrigued with casting, right? Because it is a character that, for me, carries a lot of content, carries a lot of importance. No pressure, Bottom, no pressure. But as you're casting, with what Shakespeare used to do is he took his fools, right? He took William Kemp or Richard Tarleton and took what they were good at. Robert Armine, he was a beautiful singer, so he became Feste in Twelfth Night, and he was like, all right, my canary, sing, right? William Kemp was a great dancer. So in his productions, you dance. So I'm curious how, when you cast it, that might have, like you said, kind of altered how you perceived it? And does it alter how you push certain actors if they have certain strengths? Or
Yeah, I might have to come back once we get into rehearsals and talk more about that. But
I like this plan. This is a good plan.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yeah, I was really excited about it. So, again, our version is way different. So, in our version, he is Hippolyta's cabaret choreographer. So, it's still the showman, still the wanting to be the center of attention. So, that's kind of the energy I was looking for in auditions. This young man came in, and he's one of our upperclassmen. I had worked with him in Corpus Christi, and he was in a smaller role. I didn't use him in August Osage. He hasn't had a lot of main stage time in his time at UCO because if we were to, I hate putting actors in like types, but if we were to type him like the old days, he would be a clown. We don't do a lot of stuff like that at UCO. So he came in really gunning for the role and had done a lot of homework and really just encapsulated this character that's pretty iconic, but with this new spin on it as this, narcissistic choreographer. So again, it just made it easy. It's like, there it is. So in terms of how I'm going to have to direct him, I don't know what I don't know yet.
Right.
I really, as a director, love to come in with a 90% game plan. Like, here's exactly what we're doing. We'll do it my way. And wherever the little holes are, then you can put your little secret sauce on them. And I'm also very little ego when I direct. If someone has a better idea, we'll always try it my way first. But then it's a little bit more democratic. Like, you got a better idea? Let's hear it. Let's see it. Let's try it. Ooh, I love it. Put my name on it. And we're gonna, yeah. So I and he's the type that will bring a lot of his self to it. So I'm excited.
I mean, bring in the clowns.
Yes.
I am fools, clowns. I love them because people think it's easy. People think it's easy to be a clown or be a fool. And I think it's one of the most difficult roles there is
Yeah.
because you are acting the fool. You have to have the wit. You have to have, Shakespeare said it best, right? You've got to be smart to play the fool.
Yeah.
And so that to me is so important when you're looking at, like you said, the cast and who's playing what kind of role. There's a level of intelligence, of sharpness, of ability to adapt that always comes with those clown characters.
Yeah.
So props to whoever you are out there. We're excited to see your bottom.
Your performance as bottom.
I was like, that just sounded weird. Oh, well, that was the first one. Well, no, that was not the first one for the morning. but whew. So in terms of, again, Shakespeare especially, I'm so excited that you're taking on A
Yeah.
Midsummer Night's Dream because it's such a great one. And it's this merging of plot lines like you talked about that is, it's a mess, but for me, it's one of the best resolutions in Shakespeare because
Yeah.
a lot of times he's like, all right, really great characters, like As You Like It. Amazing characters, some of my favorite. Worst plotline ever, right? It's just like, okay, like we're all gonna go into the woods, chaos is gonna break loose. I'm gonna tie things up. I don't know how, but we're gonna tie it up. Everyone's gonna get married. It's fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
But Midsummer, the resolution is one of those where it doesn't end with the marriage,
Right.
right? It keeps going.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
ends more with the mechanicals.
Yeah. The play within the play.
Yes. And that for me, I think is what makes it such a strong one for me is that his conclusion in that one, it's not really about the marriages. It's more about class. It's more about the society that's developing at that time period.
Mhm.
Because we see the mechanicals and people tend to dismiss them almost. But that's what England looked like at the time.
Mhm.
It was filled with these individuals who were influxing into London. London grew 400%
Wow.
in 50 years. 400%. And so it's these people who are looking for opportunity, who are looking for a chance. And that for me is like the mechanicals. They are not the wealthy. They are not the ones. And yes, it's hard when your dad dictates who you're going to marry. And I definitely feel the pain of the upper echelon. But for me, again, it's just, we talk so much about having opportunity here in the United States. And that's who the mechanicals are. They represent like looking for possibility.
Mm.
And they're hilarious.
Yeah.
And sometimes ridiculous, but they're pushing themselves. Like you said, you have to push yourself into a little bit of what you're scared of.
Yeah.
The mechanicals, other than Bottom, who's like, I can do this. I can do all of this. I
Yeah.
got it. Everybody else is like, what are we?
Right. Right.
Right? But they're willing to take a chance just to see, and push themselves for opportunity. And so, I don't know. I feel like for me, you're almost, you would make a great mechanical. And I mean that in the best way possible.
Oh, okay.
But like those people who are willing to take a chance,
Yeah,
willing
yeah,
to
yeah.
do something that they're not used to,
Mm-hmm.
and just see what happens. But that is definitely something that I love about that aspect of it.
Yeah, that's a great insight. I hadn't really considered that. So thank you. Giving me lots to think about.
You're welcome. But yeah, so I don't know. I think that it's really exciting. It's exciting to hear about you looking at Shakespeare for the first time. I mean, obviously not for the first time, but
Right. As a director,
directing
yeah.
Shakespeare for the first time and bringing in such interesting insights and perspectives into it. Yes.
She's
Hold-
fine.
Give it-
Special guest star.
Special guest star. Riley is like, we're getting in this. Okay. Sis, take your dog dirt to work. But so with this, I think it's exciting. I think it's new, and that's what's so much fun is that people tend to put Shakespeare up on a pedestal,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, okay, it's the classics. Can't mess with the classics.
Yeah.
Mess with the classics.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what keeps him new and interesting and of the moment. My students are always like, why are we learning Shakespeare? It's 400 years ago. But it's because the topics that he talked about then are still relevant today.
Right.
And so I think one of the big things is how do you make it, I mean, it is relevant, look at the language, but most people don't necessarily connect with the language.
Right.
So what you're doing, I think, is a way to get people to recognize its relevance.
It's still relevant. I think reality TV's been in the news a lot lately with this. I don't know if you follow the news, but they're calling it the reality reckoning, and it's led by Bethany Frankel from Real Housewives of New York.
Oh, okay.
And she's trying to unionize reality performers,
Oh.
and she's calling into question these practices that a lot of shows use, which is over-serving alcohol on the set to get reactions and to get fights from people, and how probably unethical that is. So that's a great tie to Midsummer, which in Shakespeare's text they're using this magical flower
Right, I was just gonna say.
to make people fall in love with the wrong people. So we have I think a really exciting opportunity there to comment on that in a way.
Man, that is so exciting. I don't listen to a lot of stuff that's going on. Especially reality TV. I tend to dismiss it if I'm being completely honest. And I live in my bubble before the 19th century. But like I shouldn't. And that's just a great example. And I'm like, that's interesting to me. I have to go do some research on reality TV
Yes,
shows
the reality
now.
reckoning. Look it up.
But again, I'm like, I think that's great, and it gives me thoughts and insights about teaching because I teach drama in the spring, and what a good way to connect it to what's going on now, and to some of the things that my students are engaged with and interested in. I'm excited. That's a really, really interesting connection. But yes, and this is why we have directors, folks, is because they bring in really interesting ways to see things that we've seen before. And so I'm very excited.
Yeah, me too.
But okay, so it's going to be produced, so it's coming out in February.
Yes, February 9th through 12th, I want to say.
Okay, so you have limited time, everybody, so put it on your calendars.
Yes.
Make sure, so February 9th through 12th.
UCO Mitchell Hall.
Okay, UCO, Mitchell Hall, everybody can be there. Show up, show out. Get ready for some reality TV meets Shakespeare. Thank you so much for doing this morning.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
And we'll have to do it again as you start with rehearsals.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll probably have more things to say.
Perfect. All right. Well then, all right. Sorry. I was like, where are you going? All right. So everybody, thank you all for listening. Riley and I really appreciate it. I would love your feedback. What do you like? What do you want to hear more about? Obviously, we're going to hear more about A Midsummer Night's Dream. And please do subscribe to the website if you don't mind. Just remember, all the world's a stage, and you too can be a shrew.